Not every car that wins a World Championship Grand Prix is brilliant. Sometimes, through circumstances, luck or inspiration, machines that would otherwise be considered midfielders have their day in the sun. So let's take a look at what we believe are the 10 worst cars to win in Formula 1. Number 10. Ferrari F60, 2009. Ferrari's car for F1's new 2009 regulations was poor. Not only did the team miss the double diffuser trick, most effectively utilised by Brawn, the F60 also lacked the ideal weight distribution as the team used KERS for the first time. Ferrari didn't agree with the legality of the double diffuser and didn't respond as quickly as it might have done, and it took Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa 4 races to even score a point. At Spa later in the year, a safety car restart and the benefit of KERS enabled Raikkonen to snatch victory from Giancarlo Fisichello's Force India, which didn't have the added boost of the energy recovery system. But the forgettable performances of Luca Badoer and Fisichella, both of whom stepped in after Massa's serious accident in Hungary, underlined how difficult this car was. Number 9. Shadow DN8, 1977. Initially designed in 1976, the DN8 scored points in each of its 3 F1 seasons, but it was never cutting edge. On a good day in 1977, Shadow could get one of its cars into the top 6, usually driven by future world champion Alan Jones. On a bad day, and there were a few, it failed to finish and Shadow was only 7th in the Constructors' Championship. That would have been 8th had it not been for a remarkable day at the Oostenrijk Ring. Jones started 14th, but a wet track on race day provided an opportunity. Most runners started on slicks and Jones made impressive progress in the early slippery conditions. After 16 of the 54 laps, he was second, with only reigning world champion James Hunt ahead. Hunt looked in command until his McLaren's engine cried enough with just 11 laps to go. Jones was left to beat Niki Lauda's Ferrari by 20 seconds to secure Shadow's only F1 World Championship victory. Number 8. Toro Rosso STR3, 2008. The STR3 was, to put it simply, a 2008 Red Bull with a Ferrari engine rather than a Renault, but there was more to its win than just putting a different engine in Adrian Newey's chassis. There are other key factors to its memorable Italian GP victory with Sebastian Vettel. Firstly, Toro Rosso moved the car's weight distribution further back, which improved traction out of Monza's slow chicanes. The wet weather that weekend also played its part, allowing Vettel to use the car's stability under braking to take pole position and then win the race comfortably. Number 7. Tyrrell 011B, 1983. To call the 011B a bad car might be rather harsh, as it was always going to be outgunned by its turbo rivals, but it was not normally on the pace. The development of the reasonably competitive 1982 car, the flat-bottomed B version struggled to finish in the top 10 in 83. Tight street tracks, which minimised the power advantage of the turbos and highlighted their problems of lag, were the last venues the Cosworth DFB engines still had a chance. In Detroit, Michele Albretto qualified 6th and rose to 4th in the race. The Tyrrell then got ahead of Keke Rosberg when the Williams made a slow refuelling and tyre stop, and he moved into 2nd when fuel system problems put out runaway leader René Arnoux in the Ferrari. Although Albretto kept the pressure on Nelson Piquet, it wasn't until the Brabham picked up a puncture with 10 laps to go that the non-stopping Tyrrell first hit the front. Apart from Albretto's win, which was Tyrrell's last, the car's best 1983 finish was 5th, and it was replaced by the 012 before the end of the season. Number 6. Ferrari 126CK, 1981. The first turbocharged Ferrari was all about a powerful engine strapped into a chassis nowhere near as good as most of its rivals. Somehow it won 2 races, and amazingly they came at 2 of the season's 3 slowest tracks. The first was made possible by one of the great qualifying laps in F1 history, as Gilles Villeneuve put the Ferrari 2nd on the grid in Monaco. Nelson Piquet's more nimble Brabham pulled clear in the early stages, and Villeneuve soon had to make way for Alan Jones in the Williams. Jones inherited the lead when Piquet crashed in traffic, but he was already suffering from fuel system problems that would allow Villeneuve to sweep by his spluttering Williams with 4 laps to go to take the win. Next time out at Jarama, Villeneuve rocketed from 7th to 3rd at the start, then passed Carlos Reutemann's Williams at the start of lap 2. When Jones went off from the lead on lap 14, Villeneuve was left to defend from the chasing pack, By the end of the race, the top 5 were covered by just 1.24 seconds. Number 5. Ligier JS43, 1996. On average, the Mugen Honda-powered Ligier was the 7th fastest car of 1996, and Panis qualified 14th in Monaco, 2 seconds off Michael Schumacher's pole time. But the wet race proved to be one of attrition, and Panis was inspired. Multiple shunts, including Schumacher on the first lap, helped Panis, but he was also prepared to make some aggressive passes. Perhaps his boldest move was on Eddie Irvine, which briefly left the Ferrari stationary at the hairpin. By the time the remaining runners had switched to slicks, Panis was up to 3rd, behind Damon Hill's Williams and the Benetton of Jean Alesi. Hill was 48 seconds ahead of Panis when his Renault engine blew up, and then, with 16 laps to go, Alesi retired with suspension damage. Panis took over at the front and successfully kept David Coulthard's McLaren behind to record his only World Championship victory and the last for Ligier. Number 4. Williams FW09, 1984. The FW09 was the first Williams turbo-powered car, and it struggled to deal with the Honda engine's abrupt power delivery. Keke Rosberg was better prepared for the sweltering heat of Dallas than his rivals, having a water-cooled skull cap for round 9 of the season. He started 7th but moved forward immediately, quickly rising to 2nd and then taking the lead from Nigel Mansell's Lotus just after half distance. Alain Prost's McLaren then moved into the lead, but with the track surface deteriorating, many drivers ended their day in the wall and Prost was one of them, leaving Rosberg in the clear to win. Number 3. Lotus 43, 1966. This troublesome Lotus failed to finish all 5 GPs it started, apart from Jim Clark's success in the United States. Clark qualified in the top 3 every time he raced the car, indicating the chassis wasn't a bad one. The main issue, however, was the BRM P75 H16 engine, which was too heavy, unreliable, and not as powerful as hoped under the new 3-litre engine regulations. Clark qualified 2nd at Watkins Glen, but his H16 failed at the end of practice and Lotus had to borrow BRM's spare. Clark ran 4th, but one by one the cars ahead failed and the double world champion was left to cruise to victory by a lap. Number 2. Ferrari 625, 1955. The 1955 F1 season was all about the Mercedes-Benz W196s of Juan Manuel Fangio and Stirling Moss, with the superb but underfunded Lancia D50 showing hints of potential. Maurice Trintignant qualified as the fastest Ferrari at Monaco, but that was only good enough for 9th, 3.3 seconds behind pole sitter Fangio. The Mercedes ace made the early running before going out with transmission problems. Moss then took over at the front, but he suffered a rare Mercedes engine failure with 20 laps to go. Alberto Ascari would have taken the lead, but instead had his famous dip in the harbour in his Lancia. All that left Trintignant to take his first World Championship GP win by 20 seconds. Thereafter, the gap between Mercedes and Ferrari at the flag could normally be measured in minutes. Number 1. Jordan EJ13, 2003. Normally, selecting a number 1 spot in these countdowns is difficult, but not this time. With a next best result of 7th, the 2003 Jordan is easily the worst car to win a Grand Prix. There were problems during the design stage, as the team went the wrong way with its aerodynamic philosophy, and it had to cope with a switch from Honda to Cosworth engines. In appalling conditions in Brazil, the team persuaded Giancarlo Fisichella to come in for an early pit stop, and he climbed the order as others crashed or pitted. On lap 53, he was up to 2nd behind Kimi Raikkonen, and a mistake from the McLaren allowed Fisichella to get ahead and cross the line to lead lap 54. Mark Webber's Jaguar then crashed heavily and the Renault of Fernando Alonso hit the debris, bringing out the red flag. Raikkonen was originally handed the win on countback, but it was subsequently corrected so that the order was taken at the end of lap 54 when Fisichella was ahead. Woeful reliability and poor pace meant that despite the victory, Jordan finished 9th in the 2003 Constructors' Championship, ahead of only Minardi. Even Jordan designer Gary Anderson agrees it is probably fair to call it the worst car in recent times to win a Grand Prix, and the EJ13 underlined its quality by catching fire as Fisichella stopped in the Interlagos pit lane, following what turned out to be a fortuitous victory. Which cars do you think were the worst to win F1 races in the history of the World Championship? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.